think as you can see on the screen, a brief intro as about myself, just from a professional perspective, you can see that I am a PM at Microsoft and I worked at Deloitte and Oracle in the past, and I have an MBA from ISB. But moving on, uh, so let me walk you all through what is planned for today. I think it'll be interesting to know to get the pulse of the audience here. Please feel free to like probably share on the chat or unmute and interact wherever you have a question. But essentially, the agenda for today is to understand who a PM is. I know, like at least during my undergrad, we weren't as exposed to this concept of PMing 5 to 6 years ago as it is today. And so we will understand who a PM is, and we'll straight up jump into the crux of what a PM interview consists and what is the specific scope of today, which is product design, how we solve it, and I'll also walk you all through solving a live case as an example, followed by a bunch of Q&A where we can go into the questions around the product case or any other orthogonal questions you have around the role. So that's where we can spend some time on the Q&A. Without further ado, we'll get into the first point in the agenda to understand who is a PM. So, like, I'll be very interested if any of you will come forward and talk about it. I think Meenal spoke a little bit on product marketing, which is quite interesting to do at a fourth year undergrad level. And if there's anyone else who's exposed to this space or who's even like aware of what a PM is, feel free to unmute or even share it on the chat.
Hi, I'm Sanskriti. So basically, I think that a product manager is like the CEO of the product. Like the person is in charge of the product, and they see all, like, from the from developing and designing the product to launching it. The whole life cycle of the product is under the in charge of the PM, and they coordinate with all the stakeholders, and even after the product is launched, they are responsible for seeing whether any problems are coming up and what new features can be introduced, etc.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. Thanks, Sanskriti, for coming forward and sharing that. Anyone else?
I want to add is that product managers are the one who are responsible for creating the user-centric product, maybe at the start or after when it is launched, making the product more user-centric.
Absolutely. That is definitely one of the responsibilities that is critical to a PM. And essentially, you're spot on with that, Meenal, because PM is the sole owner of getting the customer's perspective to the product team. So you're right.
I think
All right.
in a
Yeah.
one line we can say that PM is one who can do anything to satisfy the customer's demands or customer's needs. He can do anything for that.
Shubham, I think that's the North Star. That's a good way to think about it. But anything is probably not most of the times we'll get to do. But that's the North Star most PMs have. They would want to cater to any need, but there will be multiple stakeholders involved, multiple constraints involved, and
Sure.
so yeah, sure. Thanks for sharing that, Shubham.
I think PM represents the customer for the company because like they understand what user needs and they can align the product according to the needs of the user.
Absolutely. I do see an answer on the chat as well. Janaki had told that a PM is someone who can develop and modify the product according to the user's needs. So yeah, I hear a lot of user representation in the answers, which is great. And I think we can move on from this question. But yeah, I think you all already know who a PM is. At least when I was in my undergrad, I wasn't this aware of what this role was, how people go. So yeah, that's really great to understand where you all are coming from and the amount of awareness you have. So yeah, this is typically pretty much what you would get when you know do a search engine search on what a PM is. This is a Venn diagram that shows up, and that is PM sits right in the center of the Venn diagram of UX, tech, and business. um, this is essentially and I think I want to just add a point here that UI and UX are quite different, and I'm sure most of you are already aware. The UX is where all the feedback that you folks gave in, the answers that you folks gave in about the user's experience comes into picture. Customer needs, customers experience, all of that is in that part of the PM role. The tech is where the interactions of the PM with the crew that builds the product and the designers who actually design the systems that go behind the product, all the possible technical feasibility analysis, constraints, everything around tech is also, you know, managed and understood by the PM, so that they can make a good overlap as to what the customer wants versus what we can achieve as a, you know, engineering crew, technical crew. And the last bit is also to align to our company, like as a startup, for example. If I am a product manager in a startup, why am I solving this particular customer's problem using my technology? What is it bringing to me? What is it bringing to the company? That's the business aspect of the product management. So it's a very beautiful role. It involves a combination of understanding end to end picture of what our product is, to how are we building it, to how is it useful to the customer, and how is it useful to the company. So that's the PM role. And yeah, as we say, we are responsible for the strategy, development, management of the product, and the entire life cycle, as someone called out before. So we'll jump right into the heart of we all, if you want to be a PM, we'll have to go through an interview. And what are the different questions that come in the PM interview? Sahil already mentioned in the start that product design is one of the big questions that typically comes up majority of the times. However, there are a bunch of other types of questions as well. Uh, Today, we'll be majorly focusing on product design. But in the next slide, I'll probably show you what are the high level types of questions that are asked in a typical PM interview. So as you can see, product design is the topmost question that gets asked. If you have barely half day to get to a PM interview and you're too stressed out to go through the entire prep, just be thorough with solving a product design question, and the odds are you'll get asked a product design question. So that is how popular it is. And so product design is, we will go deep into how we solve the question in the later slides. The root cause analysis questions usually come in when you're asked to understand why a particular KPI or a particular product success metric has been dropped or has been skewed in the recent past. And I think probably a sample example question would be like, Uber had lost its active users by 20% in the last 1 week. You're the PM and you would need to figure out why that happened. So that's an example of a root cause analysis question. Product critique and product strategy are relatively less popular, but the way the questions go is product critique questions are presented with a specific product, and you're asked to give ideas to improve the product or how it can be better in a way. That's the product critique question. Product strategy question is more about understanding the compete. I think some we can get folks muted if possible. Thank you. So yeah, product strategy questions deal more on the strategy part of the PM role, where you'll be probably given a product and asked to do a compete analysis of the product on the go in the interview, or you would probably be asked to set a long-term vision, 5 year or 10 year down the line vision for a product that you're presented to in the interview. So these are mostly strategy questions, and I'm taking the GTM out. GTM is also part of a product strategy question in a way. So product GTM is to how you go to market with the product. It involves a bunch of things as to what all will you consider, which market will you launch it in, at what price will you launch it in, and so on. So it involves an end-to-end GTM strategy, including marketing. Technical design is mostly on what goes behind the product. What are the different systems involved? Are you, as a product manager, aware of how it will be built? Need not be as deep as coding a particular functionality of the product, but it'll stop at a level where you're meeting the technical requirements of the customer, end customer, be it the scale of the product or even the, you know, uh, anticipated latency requirements or anticipated data consistency requirements of the product. These are a little bit on the technical requirements perspective. We'll have to get at the design. The last two are mostly followed up after a product design question. Success metrics after you are asked to design a product. Sometimes, if it gets over in a quick amount of time, you have been asked to define a success metric. How you will define what you've built is going to be successful or not. And that's also a critical part of PM's job. So that's about the success metrics. And pricing and monetization is basically how it's going to sound like. Are you going to price your product? At what level are you going to price your product or functionality? So these are the top questions, pretty much exhaustive list of everything that you might get asked in a PM interview. The heart and the interesting part of product design question is where we'll jump into today. So essentially, we'll first define how a product design question will look like, and we'll know what framework or what particular steps can be used to solve a product design question. Followed by, we'll take a live example of a product case and try to solve it. So yeah, this is an example of how it will look like. Uh, this type of questions are aimed at testing your ability to create a new product or modify an existing product. It could be like improve something, or it could be like design a solution for a customer to achieve a particular aim or a goal, as I think the typical question template can show. And for improvement, it will be like improve a particular product to drive a metric and make it better for the customer. So this is how it'll look like. And product design question is so broad that you may not be even constrained to just an app or a product that you will work with. You might be asked to, design a refrigerator, design even a bed frame, design even a work table, and all of these things are product design questions. So that's how ambiguous and broad the question range for product design should be. So what the interviewer is testing you is with your creative thinking, how you will break down the problem's ambiguity, and how you are structurally approaching the problem and getting at a minimum viable product which looks realistic and solves the customer's problem spot on. So that's the agenda for product design question. I'll share the framework that we'll be using, and this is one of the most common frameworks used for solving a product design question. It's called the circles framework, and the reason this is taken up as an example is it is a very structured approach, and that can be used in any sort of product design question. And I'm not sure if you folks are aware of the Cracking PM Interview book, and this is pretty much gotten popular via that book. And this framework is quite popular among PM prep network. So how the framework goes is we try to comprehend the situation, ask all the possible clarifying questions to get a better picture of what the question is, what is our situation, identifying our particular customer. Like a bunch of you already told that customer is the person who the PM is working for. So it's important for us to define the customer and identify what are the possible customers who are we going after. So that's the one. That's the identifying customer part. The R stands for reporting the customer needs. Once we identified and scoped down to one customer segment, we'll try to figure out all the needs of the particular customer, and we'll prioritize the top needs that we as a PM would like to solve. If we go exhaustive on the customer's requirements, and I think that's why I kind of gave that caveat when someone raised that this is going to be like PM will do anything to solve everything for the customer. Probably not, because there are always going to be some amount of constraints coming with how much we can achieve. And as PMs, we are also aiming always at optimizing and being efficient with what we deliver. So we do cut through prioritization of what needs we are going to solve for the customer. Then once these needs are clear in our minds, we come up with brainstorming the solutions. This is where a lot of practice comes into picture. It might look very simple when I solve a case live in this session, but it takes a lot of practice and probably a bunch of mocks. That's one thing I recommend most people, because coming with a list of solutions is the place where your brain needs to work on the go, think creative, think on the go, and come up with solutions, not just with buzzwords and trying to use a lot of complex technical functionality, but it should be spot on to what needs we are solving. So it's always good to have some practice around the list solutions part. The last but one is to evaluate the trade-offs. Even among all the exhaustive list of solutions, we won't be able to bring everything to the customer. So this is the next level of filtering. We'll evaluate which solutions are solving the most critical needs, and they will bring in the most viable product. And the solutions that can go in a later point, we can drive it at a future point of time. So that is about the evaluating trade-offs and summarizing the recommendations. The most important part of answering a question, because interviewers have to be with you when you're giving an answer. So it's always important to summarize, even once in a while in the middle. It's good to summarize what you've come so far after reporting the customer needs or after evaluating the trade-offs, and once and for all in the end, summarize what is your minimum viable product after evaluating all the trade-offs among the list of solutions we came up with. So yeah, this is getting a little deep into how we do each of these. I already gave a summary of what we will do at each levels, but it's a structural approach to understand. Comprehending a situation comes with a bunch of questions that we are being asked, that we are going to ask. We'll ask, why are we building this product? What is the goal, outcome? Who are we? Who are we building it for? What is the market? Who do you have a specific customer in mind? uh, what and how are we building it? If there are any technical constraints, if there are any budget constraints, all of these things need to be clear before we start getting into the solution. So this particular step, comprehending the situation, is not nothing but getting a more scoped and specific problem statement from a more broad and ambiguous problem statement that the interviewer is giving us. So the next step is identifying the customers. I know, like, for a question, there can be a bunch of customers who can use the product. Now, as part of scoping, it's good for us to have some set of customers, and it's good to use some techniques like, picking the demographics, behavioral needs, use cases, what is the customer looking for, age groups of customers. So all of these ways can be used to segment customers. So it depends a lot on the question. So it is not one size fits all, like you can use one framework to come up with a set of customers. But naturally, you will tend to get at, oh, okay, if you say a product, then these are the potential customers. So then use the techniques like demographics, user needs, and what are they trying to achieve, and age groups, etc., to segment the customers in a more structural way. And that makes defining the persona of the customer more easy. By persona, I mean we tell the age group, the use case of the customer, and what they are trying to achieve. So that's a single line definition of what our customer is, who we are keeping in our mind while building our product. So yeah, the second part of identifying is also choosing the segment of all the exhaustive list of customers we laid down in this step. We'll pick one customer. How we will pick it is the important part. We should be structural over there and pick the one that reaches a larger set of audience. It will also solve a lot of problems for the customer. Probably one set of customers need this product more than the other set of customers, and that is the sort of objective analysis you do before you before you end up picking customer. And when you talk about reach, there is a need sometimes to do a guesstimate as to understand which customer may reach more, volume of users for our product. All right. So once we have a persona in mind, what we'll try to do is keep ourselves in the shoes of the user, and user pain points will automatically hit us. And it's always good to get an act back from the interviewer during this stage. Report all the needs that you can think of and keep nagging the interviewer if there are any needs that they have in mind that we haven't thought about. And it's very important, more often than not, they are also thinking in your shoes, in the customer's shoes, and they are having some needs that you are not listing. So it's always good to get that act. That's a small tip there. And you use tools like day in life for jobs done. Just basically, as I told, keep yourself in their shoes, walk your day while using that product. What are the different needs that the customer might have, and so on. So, and also there's another tip that is quoted over here about not talking about the solutions. This is a very, very common trap that many people go through when they are solving product design questions for the very first time. So essentially, like I told you, listing solutions is the most difficult and most nerve wrenching part, because you're always thinking, oh, can I come up with a product at all? Can I come up with a fancy solution at all that looks cool? So the moment the question is given, no matter how much you try, your brain is always thinking about solutions, solutions, solutions. So when you're talking about customer needs, your brain is automatically coming up with problems that will solve the solutions you already have. So that is a trap. Even if you want to present the problems that are in regard to the solutions you have, it's important to conceal them to the interviewer. You're never going to talk about the solution at this point, and that's a very, very big mistake that many interviewees do. So yeah, and then that's about the reporting customer needs part. Yeah, this is more about cut through prioritization. Sometimes we come up with, this is an optional step, I'd say, because for some customers there'll be limited needs, but for some customers there's an exhaustive list that's never ending. And so you need to pick what you want to solve, compare them within each other, and try to bring up the impact of each of them. Try to prioritize based on what are the must haves, what are the good to have. So the different techniques that can be used at this point. Or if it's so bland that you can't figure what is needed, you just come up with top favorite needs that you want to solve and align with the interviewer. That's good enough as well. But that is only if you can't see a difference in impact and you can't trade off. So use it as a backup if you want to pick something. But mostly the recommendation is to go with the trade-offs and impact and understand how you want to prioritize the pain points. Pick, I would say, typically 3 top pain points that you would want to go after. And sometimes once you present 3, the interviewers will say, no, no, just go with one problem, solve just one problem, which is okay. This is where all the whiteboarding, brainstorming comes into picture. Come up with one or more solutions to be solved for pain points. Be creative. Be more open and inclusive in your solutions. And I think at times this is the point where you take a long pause in the interview and make sure that you're engaging the interviewer in the meantime. Mention what you've learned so far and why you need 20 more seconds or so to make sure that they are still with you. And if needed, in extreme cases, you can make a small flow chart or a wireframe to show them this is what's there in my mind. PM interviews always come with a pen and paper. Uh, like you need to have a plain sheet of paper and a pen at the least. So You can always bring it to the screen and show it to the interviewer. This is what I've been thinking, and this is how it will look if needed. If the product is a very visual product or a place where you need some visual cues to explain your thought process. Evaluating trade-offs, again, like you have a bunch of very cool problems, like you've prioritized the problems, that itself should be important. Now also we are evaluating and trading off solutions. What is this? So this is because even the solutions that we listed, the list of solutions cannot all go to the end user at one go, and this is in fact how a real world product also works. We need to prioritize the top few functionalities that will make the product still useful, that will solve the particular customer persona we are going after. And then we go after, the remaining features, remaining solutions we listed in the later phases of the product. But first, we want something to get it out to the customer at the earliest possible time, so that we deliver the impact before others do. And so that is the need for trading off and coming up with a list of solutions. This is where we use the RICE framework. We understand impact of each of the solutions, how much effort it takes to build each of these solutions. Like I said, the sooner we go to the market, it's the better. So the RICE framework is used to, size each of the solutions in the order of reach, impact, confidence, and effort, and do a final list of MVP functionalities and the ones that will go after a first release. Summarizing is the only biggest tip I have in summarizing is never summarize for longer than like 2 minutes. It should always be, no matter how much you want to summarize the entire first step to until the last step, starting from how I came up with the customer, how we discussed about who is the good customer, what not, and then talking about how we picked the customer, the guesstimate we did. We do want to highlight all the effort we put in so far, but it just disengages the interviewer. So summarize it in 2 minutes, talk crisply about the outcome of each step, tell that you gave me this question, we agreed on this customer, these are some of the needs, and we picked top 3 needs which are XYZ, and then talk about a bunch of solutions, how we picked the top solutions for the MVP. So that's how you summarize the recommendation. At points, if you feel that there are critical points in the case where you took an objective call using a structured approach, then make sure you call that out, why you prefer this over the other. So that's how the summarizing recommendation part goes. In this point, if you need if the interview goes very quick, you can choose to extend it beyond by defining what defines the success of this product, success metrics, and how will you go to the market with this product, and even pricing. In today's example, I plan to cover all of them, but it's not necessary that in a product design question you are expected to cover pricing, success metrics, GTM, all of them. You need to take an act from the interviewer. If they are expecting it from you, then you can feel free to go with that. So this is the case we'll be solving today, and I appreciate some engagement as to, at each stage. There are
Shivapriya,
any questions?
we have one question in the chat. I don't know what the question is though. The person has written, I have a question regarding impact area identification. Probably we can expand on that.
Yes, I actually posted that.
Yeah,
Let me
please.
know if I... Okay. So my question is basically, so for example, we are actually discussing about the product that needs to be developed in future, right? But what about the product that is currently being developed, and then we are talking about different features that we will have to work on in future, right? So for example, let me say, when we discuss about the impact areas, and when we are discussing about new product features, that is definitely going to have an impact on other areas of the product as well. So my question here is that how can I identify one feature impact on other features that are already part of the product? How can I identify them? And how many stakeholders will be involved in that particular discussion? Will it be just BA, like the business analyst, the product manager, the product owners, and stuff like that? So there are my two questions basically. How can I identify, like a product manager, can I then identify the impact areas of one particular feature onto other features? And who will be the stakeholders that will be involved in that discussion? Thank you so much.
Hey, so if I understand the correct question correctly, just to clarify, you are asking about a real PM's experience, or are you asking how, if a product improvement question has been asked, how are we going to,
Yeah, yeah.
identify the
Yeah. I'm basically asking with reference as a product manager,
as a manager?
right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
time question that you have. So if there's a new area that you are asked to work on an existing product, it typically, comes for a customer more often than not. Even if it's coming from leadership, in some cases it's coming because a customer typically needs it. They're looking for your solution, this feature. And so I think what you need to be very crystal clear about the impact and trade off with other areas is by defining your KPIs. Essentially, what is the goal by building this new feature or new functionality? How is it moving the needle? How is it moving the adoption? How is it moving the revenue? How is it moving different needles? And you need to constantly get an act from multiple stakeholders on this. You rightly pointed that out. It could be your LT, it could be your product marketing, product business analysis people, and all of these folks need to align on, we decide on moving this needle rather than this. So at the end of the day, we're not building a functionality in the air, we are building a functionality to move a particular KPI. So, and if folks are we as PMs are responsible to analyze how much this functionality is going to move the needle. By building this functionality, this particular metric will be expected to move in this direction or the other by X percentage. And if the rest of the stakeholders are aligned by it, then we go forward with it. So that's when you have multiple rounds of reviews and sign offs. I think Sahil can
Yeah,
also add anything because it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
generic point. Yeah.
Yeah. So one actually very good question. So more often than not, as Shivapriya mentioned, right, it is upon your judgment as a PM to make a call that, if you feel this is going to usually whenever you think of, when you've done all of these exercises and you're pitching for feature improvements over an existing product, etc., you more often than not know that this is going to improve your business metrics where you are at least aligning towards. That is how you have come to sort of that solution that you want to build. And obviously you have your peers and leadership to review your proposals with. However, if you want to make sure that, okay, I want to quantify what is the impact of A on B, right? Or for example, I'll give an example. Say you are building a product, but but you've realized that a lot of people are not being able to get say create a document. Say for example, you're building something like Notion. You want to understand, there is a document creation that happens inside it, but now you are building a learning, say a first run experience, which is whatever you want to uh, which you have for new users. Now you want to understand, okay, if I build this first run experience, how will it impact document creation on my product? So how you can do that is, the best way is to have an A/B test, right? That is something that we do frequently, and a large organization do a lot. Is that you have you build your solution for a treatment group or a small population of your users. You measure the statistics on how feature B is getting impacted when there is no feature A versus when there is a feature A. And when you see those metrics, then you can actually quantify and say that, okay, building a particular feature A is not going to impact feature B in a negative way, or is actually going to improve feature B usage is well, or whatever engagement is well. So we can go ahead and build that. So this is one way. A lot of if your internal reviews and your all of that has taken place, but you still want to quantify it, or you want to double sure if there is a major feature that you're building in an existing product, A/B testing really that helps a lot. I hope I was able to get that across. Yeah, cool. I think we received it on the comment.
That's an act. Sure. I think we can move forward with the case. I think I pasted the case we have for today, which is design a navigation system for cyclists. So we'll start and use the circles framework that I just introduced in the earlier slides. First, we go with probable answers from you all. Feel free to raise your hands and unmute and tell me what are the different questions you would ask the interviewer to comprehend the situation and narrow down the problem statement. Or even feel free to put it on the chat. I'll track it there.
Shivapriya, could you please elaborate the question a bit, because we are not able to understand the question.
I think that's meant to be that
हमें
way.
ग्राउंड में जाना हो तो
Yeah, so essentially,
राहुल आए तो
essentially the point I want you all to take away here is this is how vague the interviewer's question will also be. I mean, I can give a more specific question, but the job of yours in the first step is to make it more concise and to the point. So I couldn't see who asked me that question. I know the vagueness you're feeling in the question, and you need to ask a bunch of clarifying questions to the interviewer which will get your answers, and your question can't be, can you elaborate a bit more? So we need to go in a more specific questions approach as to why are we building this, who are we building this for, and all the frameworks that I told in the earlier step. So that's what I'm looking for. So I just want all of your brain muscles to think about what are the questions that are popping in your head and see.
Why are we building a navigation system especially for cyclists? Like, what is the need right now just for cyclists? Because we already have Google Maps and other features.
Okay, building just for cyclists. Okay, that's a good question. I think what I'll do is I'll probably give the answers in the end, or maybe share the slide I have later. But that's a great question. And so you also brought in the element of what already exists and why is it a problem at all? Are we referring to cyclists who are professionals or common? So you're talking about who you want a more answer on. So this is a good question too. Who are we building for and who are we? Both fall into this. And that's a good question too. Because in case the interviewer has a more specific answer, this is the place they will give you more context. Any more questions? Anything else that you would like to clarify? At the end of this step, we want to take away a single line business objective, a single line design question, which is more specific and more clear than the original question, which just says design a navigation system for cyclists.
In the navigation system, are we only expecting to see, like, enter the destination and get a map to reach there, or are we talking about some other features as well, like audio narration by some assistant like Siri or something?
That's also a great question. It's mostly that. So if I get your question correctly, you're asking more on, elaborate more on navigation system. Scope the navigation system for me, what I'm supposed to solve, what am I, not supposed to solve. All right. I think these are really good questions, and I see
I
one
just
on
have a
the
quick
chat
question.
also. Sure, sure. Right.
Sorry about that. So I think my primary question would be, what sort of problem are we trying to solve? What is the primary business objective behind creating a navigation system for cyclists? I know it's kind of similar to what you have already written, but I am being the manager of the engineering department, asking the question from a business owner who wants to create this idea. So I just want to
Absolutely.
ask him. I'm just trying to ask him, who is the business owner, like what is your primary objective before creating this navigation system for cyclists? Do you want to generate revenue out of it, or you just want to solve a particular problem? I think that would be my idea. Question.
Absolutely. And that's one, I think, question that goes with every possible product design case. And we need to define what is that primary metric or primary goal that we are trying to solve. Sometimes it might even be like non-business. Folks just want to do goodwill products, and as a company we want to launch or solve a particular, social responsibility wing which solves a particular engagement side of things without being bothered about revenue. And that brings a great difference in the way you come up with the solutions, right? So that's spot on. That's one question we always need to ask in this section. All right, these are really great questions. I will share what probably are some of the sample questions that can narrow down my scope at this point. Who are we and why are we building this? This is something that I would ask. And these could be different, they are multifold questions, and each person thinks differently. At the end of the day, we need to come up with a business objective. I'll ask, who are we? And I figured that we are a quick startup funded to solve problems in cyclist space. So that kind of answers the question on why are we building just for cyclists. We are funded to solve only cyclist problem, and that's the reason we are going after the segment in this case. What are we trying to solve? I think the last question we had was on the metric or goal, right? The goal here is to improve the engagement and customer experience. That is the biggest driving metric. There is no objective of revenue at this point of the product. That is the answer that the interviewer is giving me. Are we doing this because we don't have any existing apps? I think this also is part of the first question that came up, right? Why are we doing it for cyclists? There is Google Maps. The answer that the interviewer giving me is yes. And be mindful of one thing here, that sometimes the interviewer may give answers that are not true in real life. What he's mentioning here, he or she is mentioning here, is that assume Google Maps is not there. Assume no other navigation system is there. There is no other existing app, especially dedicated to cater to cyclists. So go solve the problem. So this is how the solution can also be. Now, how are we defining cyclists? The answer is anyone who rides a bike. Which market or geographies is another question that you can scope. And the answer I got is, Europe, or consider a country like Spain as an example. Are we building a new app, or are we Google who's enhancing Google Maps for navigation? So we are not having anything. We are building a new app from scratch. Are there any technical constraints or anything that we need to keep in mind? No. Go wild. Go think about any answer that you can without any constraints. So this is how I build the business objective: to build a new app that will engage and enhance the navigation and riding experience for cyclists in Spain. This covers the metrics, this covers the newness of the app, and also covers the geography answer. The second step is about the identifying customer part, and it's going to be interesting, and I know multiple answers will come up. just type in what are the different sets of customers, segments of customers that come to your mind, and who probably are, cyclists who might be using an app for navigation. Again, feel free to like raise your hands or use the chat.
Are we talking about specifically the users, like what sort of users, the age, gender, stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. So that's mostly the part in the framework where I talked about how we define the user persona based on the demographics, use cases, and all those things. Janaki is saying that kids, students, elderly players. I see Shubham saying casual cyclists for delivery purpose. Is there any specific age group we are targeting? So Permit, the idea in this stage of the question is not to ask a question. We need to come up with a list of segments. So we need to come up with all the sets of age groups and ask the interviewer which one makes the most sense. Students going to school, middle class and lower financial class who can't afford. That is a great point. Travelers, that's interesting as well. Oh, the chat is big that, I'm not able to paste all the ideas here. Let me just see the chat. For workout and exercise, that's great. Yeah, people, there are regular cyclists who go with an objective to keep fit. Cyclist groups who organize trips, for cycle races. Amazing, amazing. All of these segments need some sort of navigation. And so these all make sense. I will go with how are we choosing as well. We can pause on these are really great segments, and I think there will always be some overlaps here. Like for example, Janaki talked about kids, students, elderly players. But the one technique to keep in mind here is, Janki, that we need to make sure that the user segments we are presenting are not overlapping to the maximum possible. Kids can be already students. So kids can also be players. So I think the segments need to be specific enough and niche enough to probably, get at with a non-overlapping persona list. Environmental active guys. Absolutely. So a bunch of user segments here are use case oriented. A bunch of them are age group oriented. And I think I'll jump into what I came up with and what I used to, segment. So I went after three specific, factors that can determine that how my segments are not overlapping. I used age group, like kids, teenagers, young adults, elderly. And use cases can be like playing. I think playing, I saw it on the chat, hobby, fitness, everything I think I listed is already listed by you folks. So that's amazing to see. And because it's an app, I did make sure that one of the factors is smartphone access. Do we have it or not? So after using these three factors, the way I, came up with picking one persona is to pick an age group that has most access to smartphone. Remember, the way we are picking a customer segment is based on the reach and impact. So based on the reach, customer needs to have a smartphone to be able to use our app in the first place. So the age group that has maximum access, and the use case that have maximum impact, the use case that has maximum problems to solve. So in my objective judgment, I felt that players or hobby people who use it for hobbies or fitness, they do have a specific route they follow, the specific means that they go about. Even for transport, if they are folks who are environmental friendly, or folks who are, in the lower financial sector that someone told on the chat, all of these people use it for means of transport. And this is also a set of people who may already be aware, they are already using it every day, they already have most of the things sorted in some sense. So I figured that tourists are one segment. young adults are the set of people that will have maximum exposure to smartphones. So I went after tourists who are new to the city, would like to explore the city with the safest possible routes. Now, when I'm not stopping at tourists and I'm defining these things, this is where the persona comes into picture. This definition of what are their objectives, what are they going through, and that empathy building statement is what is going to help us understand the pain points better and come up with the solutions that are spot on. So, we need to understand who are they, what are their characteristics, what are they going through, basically. Would we like to cover their day's itinerary? And some of the objectives are also like we need to cover their day's itinerary via bike. They, if needed, we may have to do a guesstimate here as to if the interviewer asks, what do you think is the size of tourism in Spain? That can be just to pull you off guard, just to trigger some sort of anxiety in you. There can be a question as to why do you pick this segment, and that's just a heads up there. Now the next part is, I think in the interest of time, we'll also, move a little faster and understand what are the different pain points that come up with a tourist who's new to a city in Spain and they're using to cover, their itinerary using a bike. Some pain points that come across in your mind, please feel free to use the chat.
For example, a tourist is traveling on a budget and he don't want to use cab, which might be expensive. So he might use the cycle, which has a navigation system.
Absolutely. Um, but while I get why they are using it, what I want to understand is while using a bike, what are the problems that they want to be solved? They might not be knowing which places to visit for tourism. Great. So basically, some sort of help with respect to who, okay, parking. That's a great point because when we are new to a city, we don't know navigation through the routes. That's a good answer too.
I think
Finding
the
efficient route. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, I think the most important point that we need to address would be to place some sort of a smartphone within the bike that they're actually riding,
Hmm.
which they would be able to see all the time, that they can, if, for example, if someone is like me who is not aware of a new city and they're not aware of the routes that take them from point A to point B, I would probably be able to open up the Google map and then follow the route from which I need to
Absolutely.
go through, right? So I think
Absolutely.
I need to have that place within the bike, some sort of a holder or something like that, so that
Hmm.
I can place my mobile on it and then be able to see it and then follow the route.
Absolutely. That's a great uh, point. Which is quite empathetic. I love it. I think there are multiple interesting, problems. They are so exhaustive. I like how broad y'all are thinking. Traffic areas, traffic routes, easy instructions, durability of design navigation system, repairing shops. Oh, that's very sure.
Uh, Considering a tourist is traveling for the first time in that particular area, we can mark safe and unsafe zones so that tourists might only visit the safe areas.
Absolutely. Safety. Think one more thing that I really liked, which I jumped on, dining places. This is also quite interesting. It's very, I, I'm so glad that so many points that are being stated as very empathetic. I don't even think you folks need me to, walk through all these things. great answers over there. Absolutely. I think we can pause on the pain points. You folks have gone exhaustive on bringing in all the, list of possible questions, pain points, sorry, the customer might be going through while navigating in a new city. Now, some of the points I know that we're all calm now, we're all thinking so much, but in an interview, it's okay if you're not able to think so exhaustive. Don't stress on everything because not everyone thinks alike, not everyone comes in with the same set of empathetic points. My suggestion would be to come up with at least 5 to 6 pain points, even if your brain's stuck. As much as possible, come up with at least 5 to 6 pain points. And these are the ones I came up with. You can go through. Some of them are already, listed by you folks. Safety is a priority, even more an issue for female travelers. Reliability of reaching the destination on time. I think someone talked about optimizing route or something, which is kind of an overlap. Would like to ride with their trip because they are on a tour. They might want to ride with their set of friends, optimize their day's plan to cover most number of attractions because they're spending a lot to come all the way, so they would want to spend time there, covering most of the things. Parking, someone already covered. Cycle stands, location, and language barriers, especially in a country like Spain. So these are the pain points I could come up with. uh, I think we can prioritize. I think in this context, right? I know that there were a bunch of great points given here, but if you were to prioritize three of these six that I shortlisted, could you all, could you all just type in three things that you'll probably would want to pick from this list?
I
Okay,
think for
routing the
me,
most attractions, safety, language. I'm so sorry. Yeah, someone speaking?
yeah, sorry about that. So I think language barrier would be the first one.
Okay.
Uh, Optimize their plan and routing to cover most attractions. That would be the second,
Mhm.
and then reliability of reaching destinations on time.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are also saying the similar points, and uh, that is exactly how I went about doing it. I typically would want to pick three, but I made the principle of language agnostic behavior. So this felt like a basic thing for me, and so I added it. Although it probably might not be solving a need in terms of navigation, I thought language is something we need to keep it as a first principle while building this. And the three other things I wanted to build for is parking and safety, optimizing the route, and ride with their group because it's a tourism related uh, customer segment. Now, how you would want to justify this is typically based on the impact. If you're asked by an interviewer to justify it, I think you need to probably bring up a quick T-shirt sizing of the impact, maximum impact for the customer in each of these, and how much value each of these needs which are solved will bring to the customer, and then go about it. This is where we can go wild. I think it's difficult for folks to chat or share. One or two people if you are interested to unmute and share, that'll be great. But this is where we need to spend some time to brainstorm and think about specific features, specific nitty-gritties that will solve the right problem. So I'm opening it up for a few seconds, but it's okay if it's not so easy for you folks to think on the go and share it. So anything works because solutions are going to be more descriptive, so they'll need a little more detail to think and talk. Any thoughts, anyone? maybe list one or two random features. They not be an end-to-end feature sitting in a product, but if you can think of like one feature, that can solve a problem we discussed in the past.
For optimizing the route, we can go ahead with collaboration with Google Maps, so that we can get a real-time update of the road conditions that are present there. And also, like, if there is construction going on there, so we won't suggest that route to the cyclists. So be like, if there is distance, the small distance in the construction side road, we would not suggest the cyclist. We'll go by the long distance route, so as to uh, help the cyclist. Not that's
Absolutely, absolutely. For parking, tie up with people offering parking spaces. I think so. The depth of how you folks are also talking about how we are solving it. It is good. It is actually good to present it. It's not expected from an interview perspective. Like when you're listing the solutions, it could just be the definition of the solution, and collaborating with a Google Map is how part of it. Or collaborating, for example, in the chat I see someone talking about collaborating with the people who offer parking spaces is also a how part of it. So it's good to have that detail, but it's not typically expected as a norm per se. So it'll save you some time, because in an interview you're running short of time. You need to come up with a ton of solutions in 30-40 seconds. You can skip the how part in your brain. You can train your brain to just come up with the solutions just from a functionality perspective. If the ride is not completed and an SOS sent from the mobile app, absolutely, that's a great safety feature. I think I see someone else also saying the same. Sure, I think I'll list the solutions that I came up with for each of these segments. Basically, I'm talking about an app filter for parking and ride safety. As soon as I enter a desired destination in the app, I will have a representation if there is a cycle stand there or not. And if not, it'll direct me to the nearest cycle stand for that particular tourist attraction. So then I can choose if I want that in my day's itinerary or not, based on the cycle stand, because of the visibility. uh, and I think someone unmuted and told me the similar thing on the Gmaps collaboration. Road texture, repairs, speed breakers, cyclist accident prone history, and even traffic rules, right? Traffic rules that uh, actually are existing at that point in time. So all of these can be integrated into our navigation system. Uh, and minimal time is the objective of our optimization as well. So basically, ride safety contains the parking part of it, the safety SOS rating part of it. We'll understand the local crime and safety reports and show which route has how much safety rating. So that is the feature I was talking about here. Optimizing the route, enter all the destinations and get the start and end times along with the order of visiting. So if I give the list of things I want to cover today, the navigation system gives me when I need to visit what destination based on that particular tourist attraction's opening and closing time, and optimizing for covering maximum attractions in a day. And they should also have a choice of at least three routes. They should be able to take a trade off between, there is a route which will let you cover five, but it is probably not so safe. But then there is a route which will let you cover four, and then there is a very great safety rating. You choose which you want to, go after. And then ride with a group. I mean, it's just a basic thing that can come across as, one can add all the list of friends nearby using the app to create a new trip with them. And one can be the trip master, and the trip master route choices are automatically shown on the navigation to the rest of the group. Safety alarms are based on the trip. Like if one of the trip members is going way too away or is not moving from a particular spot, then an alarm is raised on the rest of the trip folks. So it's sort of a safety feature in the first segment, but I added it in the ride with the group part because it's mostly relevant to the groups. So yeah, this is how I evaluated which of these features will will have how much effort to build them, how much impact it'll have, and in the context of impact, I considered only the particular solution segment I'm talking about, and if needed, you can do a cross segment impact and reach analysis as well. After that, after analyzing this, and I think this is not numeric, so it's not so easy to show my ranking here, but what I came up with is an MVP. The idea is to introduce an app that can create an optimal and safe route and plan their day in a city with clear guidance on where to park. In the roadmap, we will expand the utility and support group trips and cyclist specific route suggestion, like this part about getting the speed breaker, getting the accident prone thing, which is very specific to cyclists. We will need some more effort to build it, so we will put it in the roadmap and do it. For now, we can use the generic Google Maps level clarity on it. I've also included a bit on the pricing and GTM. Pricing, there are multiple strategies. There could be cost based pricing, there could be value based pricing. In this scenario, I went about with the value based pricing, where we'll be calling, pricing should be on par with the value of time lost in stopping and asking local guides. So for every tourist, it's the time that's spent on a day for covering how many attractions is very important. And so that's how I measured this. And launching for the GTM part is based on the experiment in cities where there is highest footfall and marketing it at the tourist destinations stops like airports. For me, the success criteria is the retention, because my goal wasn't revenue. The goal was to engage the cyclists, make their experience enhanced. And if they were engaged and enhanced, they will use it on the next day of their trip also. So that's why I went with the retention as my success metric. Retained users and tourists who retained and used the app for more than one day is how I will define my success. So that brings us to the end of our live case. I kind of missed a bunch of chat. If there's any other questions, we can spare a few minutes on the Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up.
So, like in this presentation, we haven't discussed the pricing strategies or something, the business model of the product. So, how can we go about that? Like, how can we define our business goals around that?
Shivapriya, you want to feel that? Or
Sure, sure. The objective, essentially, we tried to cover the product design aspect of it, and the pricing approach. There are multiple frameworks to go about pricing, right? Cost based and value based are the two major frameworks used in pricing. And by cost based, we will go with in this case, it's just an app. So mostly the cost is going to be our engineering effort and how we plan to, price it to cover up for our technical overhead over time. Um, but if it's an app that comes with, physical cost, physical partnerships that are collaborating with us, then all the costs are listed and a strategy is made to come up with a break even time frame. And we need to align with the interviewer as to how many days are we willing, how many years are we willing to break even our product, and then start generating the revenue or generating the profits per se. So that is how we do the cost based analysis. I'm not going too deep into it because it's easier to explain with an example rather than the framework. So I'm giving the overview of the framework. The value based analysis is when we do analysis against an alternative option, or what value is the customer seeking out of it. And in this case, right, I talked about the time lost. Probably if you are missing an attraction, you are wasted by 1 day's hotel fee, 1 day's, you know, the time spent on 1 day is going to be your overall trip's cost divided by the number of days of the trip, because you're moving with missing an attraction to be covered. So all of these need specific guesstimates in their own pillars, and we come up with a guesstimate as to how much value is the customer having for missing these many attractions. Come up with actual quantifiable numbers and price your product at that level, so that the customer would be like, oh, I'd not rather want to waste time, I'll use this app that will make me ride smoothly, although I'm losing a little bit of money. In value based pricing, usually we market at a slightly lower price than what the actual value is, so that the customer is attracted to use the product in that sense. Sahil, you want to add anything there?
No, I think you covered, Shivapriya. Mostly, different companies have very different pricing strategies. Usually, if you are in an interview, like a product design case, you can just mention what pricing method you would want to go forward. Questions, folks?
If this was a system design question, like we had to design the app, so how should we have approached it? What different technique should we have approached?
If it was a system design, you meant, Sanskriti?
Yes, yes. Like we
Okay.
had to answer about the app.
So talking about the technical system design, right? I'm sure like that can also be a very deep discussion as to how we approach a technical question. But in short, right, usually technical system design questions are a lot more specific. They won't be this vague. They'll usually give you a product that's already there. Probably the question would be like, design the system behind Swiggy, design the system behind Google Maps, rather than keeping it vague, because the objective of this question is to make you think about and narrow down the problem and all. But the objective of that question is to understand if you know what technical systems are needed, so they don't necessarily spend a lot of time on keeping it vague. So they give you a specific question. A typical approach is to break that app into major functionalities that the app serves the customer, and think about, for each of these functionalities, what are the different functions or microservices that are needed to bring it to the customer, and use technical constraints as a lever. Try to figure how many users are needed, so that there can be other components such as load balancers, and what are the different requirements geographically, where all does Swiggy wants to be present, just within India or outside. How do we want to position our systems in geographical sense? All of these things come into picture in a technical design question. So my approach is just to break the system down into 3 4 functionalities, and try to do the deep dive is to us from one functionality to another, and behind each functionality, what's the system that goes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, folks, for the platform and the nice interaction. See you all.
Thank you.
Bye bye.